Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Meredith. So, as we all know, we have all experienced some sort of like labor cost increase. In fact, between 2019 and 2021, the inflation rate actually more than doubled. And thanks to COVID primarily, but it's kind of beyond COVID now. We know that the government had printed a lot of money over the past year or so, again, to address
Mm,
this COVID situation. And that kind of primarily helped with the inflation and increase of labor costs as well. In addition to that, the labor participation rate, and for those who doesn't know, participation rate is the percentage of population that are either working or
mhm,
actively looking for work. So basically, it actually went down. So from 2019 to 2021, the rates dropped from 63.2% to 60.6%. So not only the availability of people, is less, but also
mhm.
the wages are higher. So multiple states, and I think like maybe now federally will become something that maybe we'll be familiar with. Many states have started increasing their minimum wage to $15 an hour. So that is putting a lot of pressure on companies because they're trying to compete. Some of them cannot raise their prices. So now they're, caught in the dilemma of, well, my cost is increasing, but I cannot sometimes raise my prices. Now with inflation, you would expect everything to rise, but sometimes because of competition, you may not be able to to increase your prices. So that's kind of another part that we have seen going on. So not to mention, it is a competitive market. We are all competing for those qualified, good individuals and people. And I'm in Las Vegas. It's extremely hard to find quality people. Most of the people, try to come from like California and other states. They stay there for a year or two and they move again. So I find that it's kind of a transient city, for example, in Las Vegas. But I'm sure each one of you have experienced some sort of labor shortage, and they're trying to compete and offering a little extra in addition to compensation, like what other benefits they can offer to attract those quality people. So so the problem is that we are not seeing any slowdown in this kind of inflation and labor cost. We know it is primarily due to inflation. We have seen labor costs increasing over the past few years, but like this significant jump just happened over the past couple of years, again thanks to COVID. uh,
Mhm.
Yeah. So again, some of the companies, specifically in the food industry, are still trying to recover from the pandemic collapse. Many other companies like technology, they actually have enjoyed a good ride, a bounce in the past year or so. But again, I mean, remember that inflation is a big mix, and higher wages it's only like one element of it. So we can always work around increasing, and we will talk about this in the next couple of slides, how we can address labor costs and
Sure.
how we can figure out how we can not maybe reduce labor costs, but account
Mhm.
Yeah.
use data and
And
everything.
it kind of not to butt in here, but the whole concept of inflation, it is a little bit like a rising tide, right? Where you need to make sure if your inflationary costs are increasing in one way, we need the revenue that increases so that we can continue that up and push it higher together. I think inflation's kind of become a something to expect almost, especially in today's day and age. And so
Mhm.
I think the very happy balance of how we adjust our wages and our prices accordingly, as to not scare people away or scare business away, but maintaining our bottom line. That's going to be important.
Yeah. We actually do have a little poll question relating to the idea of inflation, the smaller labor participation pool. And the question is, has your business been impacted by any of these variables? It seems the majority of people that have filled out the question are saying yes. I mean, it is something where if you look at past webinars that we have hosted, it is everybody's being affected, no matter what business sector you're in. Riaz, I'm not sure if this is something where almost all businesses that you're working with have experienced some sort of issue regarding inflation, the labor pool, anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in Dallas this week, visiting a client and doing work with them. And believe me, I mean, this is cannot be any more timely than this. It's just happens across industries. Like yesterday, we were having dinner at a restaurant, and the manager came in just to say hi, and it's like they're having issues with like finding a good cook, a good
Right.
busser, whatever. And he was like, well, my corporation is trying to get me to hire those people, but I can't, and they're asking me to pay $15 an hour. I cannot find anybody less than $22 an hour. So, I mean,
Oh my God.
I know. So it's very hard.
I mean, those for sale signs are just absolutely piling up on windowsills left and right. It's astronomical, and you see signs, especially in restaurants, in the restaurant sector where they're talking a lot about please be patient. You know, we only have so many hands on staff. They're doing a lot of cross training. It's madness. It truly is.
It is indeed.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I think just to quantify that a little bit, we've got this graph up on the board. And I know that some of these charts can oftentimes be difficult to read. But basically what we have here is a 3-month seasonally adjusted and then a 12-month rolling average of a lot of these percent changes in things like compensation, benefits. And basically, if you analyze the data, we're seeing just a steady increase month after month on a 12-year or a 12-month rolling basis, where as in September 2021, that compensation has increased 3.7% on an adjusted level. So that means that not only are we taking into account previous years or previous months and pulling that down, we're still at the point where every single month we're pulling that up so much that it's going to take a long time of months of slowness to bring that down to a more acceptable level. So basically the effects of that, like what I was talking about, the rising tides, this is a circle, if you will, of as these labor costs increase, job seekers have more power and more authority vested in their experiences. They can get better working experiences because they just have more bargaining power. Talking about an increase in minimum wage, which is going to reduce the total amount of hours worked. We want to spread those out as much as we can, because the worst thing that can happen is we increase those labor costs is we double down and pay overtime too. Mm-hmm. So, I can stomach paying overtime if it's $15 an hour times 1.5, but when I move up to that $22 an hour, now we're talking an even more significant increase in my bottom line when my labor costs account for 80% of my costs, and I'm essentially double dipping in terms of an increase in that cost. And so if we aren't rising the tides of those two levels, that's a big increase in revenue in order to meet that expectation. So
I find it, really interesting, the first point in talking about how it's a job seeker's world. The tables have really turned in this case, and it's something that we're seeing for the first time, I would say, ever even. I don't know, Riaz, if you have any input on that as a consultant. Has this been something that your businesses have been dealing with in just attracting quality staff?
It is really across the board in almost every industry, at least here in the United States. We have seen that for people like office workers, they now prefer to work from home. They do not want to commute, many of them anyway. So they are appreciating some sort of like flexibility in work location and or hours. So that becomes maybe the number one, more than actually, the dollar sometimes, believe it or not. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. I mean, yes, you can offer people more money and that's excellent. But sometimes, with those benefits and perks, people actually would say, hey, you know what, I would accept a little less, but I'm fine with flexibility. I love, the flexibility part. So That's another element. But again, like job seekers are becoming more powerful these days because there's so many people coming their way and asking them for their efforts. Yep.
Interesting.
All right.
Really interesting.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, thank you. All right. So we are almost always under a constant change. We, as businesses specifically, we live in an environment where our company get pressure from different areas, such as market conditions. We have political pressure, we have currency pressure, we have all those marketing conditions and weather, and whatever the market condition around us, kind of that puts pressure on us and increases our costs. Sometimes our customers are becoming more demanding. As we know, I'm a demanding customer. I do not want I want everything on my mobile, and I want to have like quick, easy access. I do not want any light bulb. I want the smart light bulb that connects to my Alexa. So I'm now a needy customer, a demanding customer. And guess what this is doing for organizations? They're now, have like more cost and more, they will have to invest more efforts to please me, because other organizations are offering that. Technology is a big deal, as we know. Technology is making strides these days. So the companies who are able to leverage that technology are able to sustain competitive advantage. Of course, competitive pressure. We have seen entrance from domestically and internationally into the market, and the input cost is like basically what we're talking about today, and mainly the labor force. And the labor cost has been extremely. I remember in the boardrooms over the past many years, I think labor cost was the number one topic we used to always talk about. Those past couple of years, that amplified. So, of course, you have like electricity, gas, rent, whatever input costs that you may have, cost of food, cost of whatever it is that you have. Mergers and acquisitions in the marketplace that are also adding a lot of pressure. And of course, COVID, catastrophic events, Katrina, whatever the catastrophic events that are surrounding us.
Sure, yeah.
Remember, the input cost is probably the number one item. It actually worries the C-suite and the board members more than most of the rest of the elements here. So take, for example, the Fortune 500 companies. The Fortune 500 companies, that term got established in 1955. 1955 and then I think like 2000, 90% of those companies no longer exist. And those are like the big, wealthy, strong, let me call like dinosaurs, right? Like very, very strong, and then between then and between 2020 and now, 50% of the remaining ones actually no longer exist. And that is pre-COVID. So can you imagine the situation now with COVID? And guess what? Most of those companies are they're like big ships. They're very hard to move, right? Versus newer companies that are more nimble and agile, can like quickly adapt. They come in, they have like lower input costs and like much better technology. They don't have technical debt. So many of those are able to leverage change and move quickly, and they move out of that comfort zone to that growth zone. So that's kind of something that you need to always think about. Is like, if that's the case with the big companies, how about like the smaller companies who cannot afford being in this market for long? So just to think about that. So in my view, and again, like I like to always address any item or issue with like the people, process, technology, data element. It is a combination of those four. One of them does not fix it. We should have some sort of like balance between those four to address those elements. So talking about labor costs, right? So actually, let me start with data. Let me start with the other way around. Without data, you're just a person with an opinion.
I love it. The best tagline ever.
Without data, you're like, I think, I think the labor, issue is here. I
Right.
think we should do this. I think, and you sit in those
Maybe you're a psychic.
you sit in the boardrooms. It's like each senior leader is like, I think it's here, and then the chief analytical officer comes in with this like Tableau, Power BI, whatever it is, like data. It's like it's not, it's that, right?
Yeah.
So and that's kind of what workforce can help you with here. And I know Bo will be talking a little bit about data in the next few slides. But data is power. Utilize it. Everything starts with data. I mean, literally. So use data to be data enriched, data enabler, and then have a data-driven decisions.
Yes.
So let's then talk about technology, right? So kind of falls under kind of the data, because without data, I mean, what kind of technology you need to use? But also we use technology basically to do more with less, to increase the value with less effort.
Right. So quick question before we move on for that. What would you say to maybe more of the smaller companies like the mom and pop shops that don't see a need for data or technology?
There is always a need for data and technology. You can start with as big as you are, and you can scale up as much as you can.
Interesting.
My advice is to leverage proven data, use credible alliance and credible companies, because sometimes you go and sometimes you partner with somebody who do not have like a proven technology, and you find that you are just going around and spinning your wheel. So make sure that you partner with a company that has proven record in utilizing whatever data and technology, and then build your internal capabilities to use those people's technology if you can. I mean, that's another point that you can probably do. No, but thank you, Meredith, for that input.
Yeah, thank you.
So for technology, again, I mean, remember, we want to create new ways to please customers utilizing technology, and find ways to automate, and then potentially reach that ultimate artificial intelligence where the machine can replicate a person. So utilizing different technologies like robotic process automation and other technologies in the market. There's so many things that you guys can do. From a process perspective, I mean, again, it's the process sometimes is so simple. You just put the chair from here, you move it to there. I remember at Caesars, for example, we were worried about moving the clocks, from where the people come in to where they actually work. Because at the casino of like an acre to few acres size and 10,000 people, coming every day to work. If all of them have to all the way walk to, the entrance, or somewhere, because there are like 7 entrances, so they have to walk there and they clock in, and then to have to walk all the way to their storage areas to put their phones and clothes and whatever, and then walk all the way to their. So we were kind of worried about what we can do, and that's kind of where workforce also, for example, can offer you some sort of like, okay, maybe tablets that take a picture or something, so it's more mobile, instead of like think about like that's all technology and all process. So sometimes process improvement, how we can improve the process, how we can do something safer, better, faster, optimize the process, optimize what we're doing, and then reach that excellence. Go ahead, Bo, you have a question.
Yeah, I hear that so often from all of our customers, that example right there, which is, those extra tablets that you may buy and put closer to a workstation, or have, 10 versus 1 at the front of the door, that may cost an extra $300 or $500 as, a per unit basis. But if you're saving 10 to 15 minutes on wage costs every day across 50 to 100 employees, that thing's going to pay itself off almost immediately. So you're talking about a real way to lower your wage costs without having to lower anyone's wages or cut anyone's hours. Basically, just be closer to the actual hours worked. So,
and not only this, I mean, Bo, like, think about this, like, again, for those Fortune 500 companies that have like 60,000 people, 100,000 people. Let's say they have like to go and put their finger, and or like they look into the cameras.
Retina, yeah.
Exactly, and it's not working, so they have to try that again, and then you have to try that third time. So multiply that by 60,000 people, multiply that by 365 days per year. Just imagine the amount that we lose by just switching from this to like click done.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like one element, and then
huge time saver.
Right, and then the last point I want to address is people, which is maybe one of the most important thing. How can we do more with less with people? How can we train them to be more efficient? How can we train them about how they can collaborate together? How we can maybe find people who are like the role models and coach those other people on how they actually do it better. How are they, the role models while like the 90 other percent are not? How can they coach those people how to be better? And then the last item within this people element is inspiring. This is probably, one of the most important topic, because if you have people who actually jealous about your work and love their work and love the company and care about it, they will do a lot better, more efficient work, and be more productive. I like to call it the entrepreneurial mindset. So if you have that entrepreneurial mindset, you come into work, you feel like, oh, this is like as if it's my company. I'm here. If I see, a paper or a trash somewhere on the floor, I will go and pick it up myself, even if it's not my job. If I see something that's not in place, I will go and just fix it, even if it's not my job, because it's like my company. Just think about entrepreneurial mindset. If it is your own company, you will be coming early to work. You will probably be leaving a little bit late. You will pick up the trash. You will do everything that takes, because it's your company. So when your people have their vested interest to make your company successful, your productivity will increase, and your labor costs would actually decrease.
So what are some characteristics or traits that you see in employees that have that entrepreneurial mindset, would you say?
So it's a combination of the employee himself or herself, and then the company and what they offer, right? It's kind of a combination of both. So sometimes, the employees are like, really, they want to do it, but the company is not allowing them to grow. They're not allowing them to learn. They're not allowing them to be flexible. They want to be flexible. They're not giving them a career path. They feel that they're stuck. They don't know, that's why they leave. Or they want to, ask something, like any like better increase. But the thing, remember, when employees ask for more salary, they will be happy for just a short period of time, but they'll go back to their, well, I'm not happy. Yes, I'm making more money, but I'm not happy here. So think about, sometimes it's more intrinsic and than extrinsic, right? So and it's kind of a combination of both. Sometimes there are employees that are self-driven. I have 3 kids. One of them is self-driven. 2 of them are not. So
hopefully they're not watching this.
No, I don't have to tell her, do your homework, whatever. She just like handles everything herself. The other 2, they're the same house. They were raised the same way, just different people.
Yeah, right? That's awesome.
It is me, or like, again, like the organization that tries to inspire. Okay, if you do this, you get this. If you do this, you get this. Right? So that's kind of a combination of those.
For sure. We actually have a webinar next week with a really awesome HR specialist, and she's going to talk a lot about the idea of employee engagement and how to identify these traits, detecting flight risks, all that good stuff. So be sure to tune in on that one next week. In fact, I'll be sure to drop in the registration link in the chat for everybody in the audience. But in the meantime, Riaz, thank you again for sharing that. That's really interesting.
Of course. Awesome. All right, I'll hand it over to Bo. I guess, talk a little bit more about like the leading indicators and lagging indicators.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm going to start on the next slide here. And so leading indicators and lagging analytics. This is a pretty big economic concept. Just to break it down in a little bit more layman's terms, basically what we're talking about here, lagging analytics, is kind of what we've just talked about in a little bit of ways. Like, we now know we want to reduce our labor costs, right? And we want to do that because we're looking at financial statements and we know our labor costs are high. But so me as a CFO, I'm going to send that information down. And as an operations manager, I'm going to be like, okay, yes, absolutely. Let's do it. How? Like, how am I going to do that? And the reality is that, the financial statements and all of that kind of information can be good from a process planning perspective. But when you're actually on the ground, what you're going to need is this concept called that leading indicators. And so a lot of the times when you're, doing a 2-week reporting period on financial periods, closing books and all of that, you're not going to get really strong insights into how the day-to-day operations are going on your business until that time period's up, until everything's accounted for. And so I think a lot of businesses lack in that way. They don't have that leading indicator insight into how their company is doing and what kind of adjustments they can make to reduce that labor costs in real time. Because that's what's going to matter to people, is not necessarily the concept, because they know they need to reduce these labor costs, but you need to enable them to have the opportunity to do that, right?
Interesting.
So the 3 different ways you can do that, being overtime, pay differentials, and productivity. So in a lot of softwares, what you're going to get is we're going to create a schedule, and we know there's going to be overtime somewhere in there, but we don't necessarily know where it's going to be, how it's going to happen. When we have real-time insights into when overtime's happening, whether that's at a nightly shift or, on a 6th day of work, I, as a manager, am now more empowered. If I have insights into this information on the day before or the hour before, I can make a decision and say, hey, this overtime's not worth it for me. We are not busy. The schedule did not come to fruition when it comes to actuals, and I need to save some costs and send some people home. Other ways that, we can utilize leading indicators are, especially in the state of California, where missed meal breaks are a pretty big penalty and can add up to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of pay differentials. If we're not keeping an eye on people's breaks and when they're taking them and making sure they're punching in and out for them so that we have that, audit trail, then we're going to lose a lot of insights into, we're basically going to show up on these financial statements and suddenly our costs are, significantly higher than we thought they were going to be. It's like, well, why was that happening? No, people weren't taking breaks. I sent out an email, say, hey, start taking your breaks. No one's going to listen to me. I need to tell them, that this is your time to take breaks. We need notifications. The third level is this productivity, which is all about basically as we, have these high levels of hours and that inspiration that I think Rias did a great job of recognizing, productivity will decline and inspiration will decline after a certain degree of overtime is worked, right? And so the more that we're forcing these hours and not taking into account these leading indicators, we're going to lose productivity, need more labor, and thus increase costs inadvertently in 2 different ways, right?
It seems the overarching theme, I would almost argue, for today's webinar is finding the little niche spots in how to reduce labor costs. And in turn, it adds up for a very big profit and in turn, a very big ROI. It's simple as using hardware like, your own mobile phone or iPads instead of having to go to a kiosk to sign in, acres away on a larger campus, or, breaks and making sure overtimes are in check.
Yep. That, and then just, on the screen, we've got 3 little things we can use, notifications, biggest thing. I'm not always by my computer. I don't always know what's going on, but when I get notified of potential changes, that's when I can make action. That's not me, 2 weeks from now deciding that we're not in a good spot. That's me making a decision right now. As well as having those tools when I do want to dive more in depth, getting on the computer, being able to look into live insights. That we got a little picture of what that looks like over here, which is basically just an understanding of what did we schedule, what are we actually doing, and how are all these impacting against the revenue that we're pulling in. Once we have that information, then I think we're in a lot better spot with those leading indicators to reduce that labor cost.